media. Don't forget to like and subscribe on our channel. It really helps out. Listen, we got another big week of college football to break down and discuss with the biggest games of the week, as we always do. I'm Max. That's Bobby. Thanks for tuning in to another show. And we're just going to jump right into it because there's a lot of games that we could talk about. But let's get into one of the biggest ones this weekend. And I think that is Notre Dame at Navy, which normally, for people in the armed forces community, maybe Notre Dame folks, pretty good game. Always, it's always on your schedule. Pretty fun for those folks every year. But this year, it has more national appeal because um, for the first time in I don't know how long, and I literally don't know how long, both teams in this matchup are ranked. Notre Dame at 12, Navy at 24. Now, Notre Dame is favored by 13. The total is 51 and a half. Bobby, are you giving Navy a chance to upset Notre Dame?
Well, I mean, I'll put it this way: Notre Dame already lost to Northern Illinois earlier this season at home, so neutral site, familiar opponents. I could see it. I could see it. I don't think it's probable, but it's definitely possible.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, to that point, anything is possible, not to quote Kevin
not
Garnett.
not the best analysis here, but I will say with Navy too, this isn't the Navy you've seen recently. They've integrated a lot of passing attack this season, which I think is really kind of an interesting wrinkle for the midshipmen.
Yeah, and I think that's the interesting part of this game is because like both of these teams seem to score a lot of points, which I don't think we're used to seeing, especially with Notre Dame. They're kind of more of a defensive team, and Notre Dame still plays really good defense. But I think it's going to be interesting to see how their defense does handle the passing attack from Navy, and then also um, how Navy is able to handle the size, physicality, and some of the things that Riley Leonard and the Notre Dame offense is able to do.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely always a consideration anytime there's a service academy versus Power Four competition. Uh, it is a natural disadvantage, and that always obviously comes into account whenever uh, Navy or Army play Notre Dame. It's gonna be I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see how they slow down Riley Leonard. We kind of buried him a little bit early this season, but he's found a way to kind of come back and look pretty damn good. So this Notre Dame team, I feel like is they're rolling. They've been on the right track and have looked really great since getting pantsed at home to Northern Illinois. I still got to keep bringing it up. It's too funny it happened.
Yeah, I mean, but like it's the reality of the situation. Like there's no room for error now for Notre Dame. To keep their postseason hopes alive, they can't have any more slip ups. Thankfully for them, um, that win early in the season against um,
Texas A&M.
Texas A&M is looking better and better because A&M, who we're going to talk about a little bit later on the show, A&M looks really good. But that Northern Illinois loss is still bad, especially at home. So now in this game, like Notre Dame has to keep the battery in their back. They have to keep they have to keep the um, their foot on the gas in this game because if they lose this one, they're that going. And on the other side of it, I mean, let's not ignore Navy. A lot of incentive for them winning this game because right now they're literally in a battle with Army amongst other schools for that group of five, designation. for the playoff as well. So I mean,
Yeah.
both of these teams have a lot to play for, which is why this game is so critical.
Yeah, if you're a Boise State fan, you're absolutely watching this one and hoping the midshipmen don't pull it off because right now Boise State definitely has the edge. But if you can say that Navy's best game of beating a Notre Dame team, that's pretty yeah flawed. But they have, I mean, beating Notre Dame would be big time for Navy. Comparing that to close loss to Oregon is you know that's I don't I think those are apples and oranges at this point. So if you are if you're Boise, this is a big one, because your margin of error instantly goes to nothing. So I think this is going to be a very this and Notre Dame's game with Army later down the line are going to be very very impactful for the playoff race.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully things are still spicy then because I can't wait to talk about that game later on in the season. But listen, both of us kind of agree. We both have Notre Dame covering in the game. The spread is minus 13. As you mentioned before, Bobby, this is a neutral site game. This is going to be at MetLife Stadium. So, no real home field advantage for either side. I just feel like with the scare that Notre Dame already has and the talent they have on their team, Navy thus far this season hasn't faced a team like Notre Dame in terms of talent, and so I just think that's going to overwhelm them, and Notre Dame is going to be super focused, knowing how big this game is. It's on ABC, so you're on national TV. It's in the early window. Folks are paying attention to you. You don't want to suffer two big upsets in one season, and I think Notre Dame is going to be really, really locked in and doing everything they can to get this W. So I love Notre Dame to cover here, and
Yeah,
you
I'm with
I
you
would say
there.
Navy too. Yeah,
I'm with you there. Because I feel like the biggest strength that you know having a Navy or an Army on your schedule does for the academies is you have to completely install a scheme to stop them. So they become a bit of this like kind of spoiler, which would make them really dangerous in a playoff. And I really want to see it happen. But the thing is, Notre Dame is so used to playing Army and Navy every single year that everybody knows, like, they know the drill already. It's not that element of surprise is gone. So you have that, but in addition to that, Notre Dame is just kind of flat out better at every position, and you know, um, I don't know. Navy just hasn't really done it against anyone substantial yet, and I think this is where they get tripped up. So I like the Irish here. I don't like them much more than 13, but I like them to cover those two touchdowns.
yeah. The funny thing is that the odds for um, Notre Dame minus 13 and Notre Dame plus and Navy plus 13, the odds are the same. Um, the line actually has come down 4 points, so it opened at 17. It's come down to 13. And for folks who maybe want to try to make some money on Navy covering, Notre Dame is 1-6 this season against the spread. So um, interesting factors for those thinking that Navy might be able to pull this one out in terms of a cover. Um, but yes, of course, should be a good one. Again, that one's noon on ABC. Can't wait to check that one out. Okay, uh, Big Ten Saturday at 3:30. We got number 20 Illinois at number one Oregon. That obviously is going to be um, a huge game. The Big Ten is stacked this year. Illinois is 6-1. Just got a good victory over Michigan last week. Oregon, number one team in the country, thanks to Texas losing to Georgia. They're undefeated, of course, and they get another tough opponent in their house in Autzen. I've been saying this all year, Bobby, but Oregon got really lucky with a lot of these hard games being um, in their stadium, and this is another one. They're going to face a really good Illinois team. The line has come to 21. I think it depends on what what site you're on. Some say 21 and a half. 21 is DraftKings. Um, is the total is 54 and a half. In terms of the college football playoff, do you consider Illinois to be a contender or a pretender, Bobby?
A massive, massive pretender, honestly. Because I here's the thing, I do like Illinois. I think they're really, really damn good at covering spreads. But you know, when it hits the road, they don't have the horses to run with the best teams in the Big Ten. They can cover those spreads, but they can't win those games. So my thing is, I think Illinois is a program in the right direction. This has been a great year for Brett Bielema and that program. But in terms of contending or protect, like they are not actually in the mix. They're just there to keep things kind of close from time to time with some of the best teams. And I think they can keep this one pretty, respectable. I just don't think they have any shot of really winning this game, just to be frank.
Yeah, and I mean we're going to talk about it in a second here, but I agree with you. I think Illinois has a chance to keep this game like within reach. But once they lose this one, um, it sort of really makes your window pretty small in terms of being able to get to the playoff. Um, Mainly because now you're a two-loss team, which is already kind of tough. And in the Big Ten, I don't think, even though the Big Ten is really, really strong this year, I don't know if there's a two-loss Big Ten team that would necessarily get a a benefit of the doubt or a push into the playoff over a two-loss SEC team or a one-loss ACC team or a one-loss um, Big 12 team. That's what I would like to think. Maybe a two-loss SEC Big 10 gets over like a one loss at large candidate like Notre Dame, but who knows? Notre Dame's a pretty big brand. Like, that's going to be tough. So, um, I do agree with you that Illinois seems like they are a pretender in terms of the playoff is concerned, and the Big Ten for that matter. Um, ESPN is projecting the Fighting Illini, giving them they're projecting the Fighting Illini to finish around 8-4, giving them a 0.6% chance to win out, and only a 6.5% chance to make the playoff. So um, I think we're all in agreement that the Fighting Illini, chances are slim, and it's mainly just because they have this really tough game against Oregon. They lose, and things get a lot stickier for them in a playoff conversation, even if they win out.
That is mean. That is so mean to poor Illinois. I'm looking at that schedule beyond Oregon. I mean, I don't see I don't see two more losses on that. Like that's damn. Like I thought I was harsh on the Illini. That is intense. Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
By the way, for the record, I think two loss Ohio State would, just given the brand, would absolutely be able to wiggle in over probably anybody. But I think that's like the one exception.
yeah, yeah. No, I think you're right about that. All right. Well, we both have Illinois covering um, 21 points against Oregon. I think to be fair, Oregon has dominated in a lot of games since the close games they had in the beginning of the season. I think that narrative has sort of shifted. I think Illinois, though, is not as bad as the teams that they have that Oregon has blown out over the last few weeks. I think Illinois is actually a really good team. I think they can do a lot of things offensively, and this is probably one of the best quarterbacks that Oregon is going to see this year, including Will Howard. Um, the Fighting Illini, uh, the Fighting Illini's QB, uh, Luke Altmaier, throwing for 1,500 yards so far this season, completes about 66% of his passes, 15 touchdowns, one interception. So, takes care of the football, um, pretty good at spreading the ball around. If you look at kind of like what their receivers, they got Pat Bryant and Zachary Franklin. Those are their top two, but their other receivers get touches. And then they have a really good running game as well. So I think their balanced offense and, you know, if they can get some pressure on Dylan Gabriel, I feel like 21, keeping it within 3 touchdowns is definitely doable for Illinois.
Yep, no doubt. 21 feels like I feel like Oregon will like hover around that number, but to me, I feel like Illinois is good enough to keep it close. It kind of reminds me of like the Michigan State game earlier this year for Oregon, where Oregon dominates the whole game. They're clearly the better team, but they don't get the cover. Like kind of like that just kind of gives me the vibe. It won't be to any fault of Oregon's, but um, I don't know. I think Illinois can do enough defensively to stick around in this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it definitely should be a good one. Okay, uh, that's Illinois at Oregon. Oregon favored by 21. Over under is 54.5. That's at 3:30. Um, 3:30 on I don't know what channel, but CBS. Yeah. All right. Next game also 3:30. Missouri number 21 goes to Alabama number 15. Um, both teams sort of fighting for their postseason lives a little bit. Alabama favored by 13.5. Total is 53.5. Bobby, what's the biggest issue for both of these teams?
Whew, wow. Well, Alabama, man, the Tide just have not looked. They just have not looked right recently. Like they, I don't know if it's a lack of preparation, a lack of seriousness from DeBoer, but they just haven't looked like Alabama. And I don't know if this is just a new world order situation um or what, but offensively, they haven't been putting up the numbers you want. Milroe hasn't been, as mistake free as you would have liked, and the defense has been kind of lacking at times. They were really good in the first half against Tennessee, but just kind of fell apart there. Missouri, on the other end, I mean, look, I'm going to be up front. I've been saying all season that I think they're frauds, and they wouldn't get exposed until big games. But they're like showing their ass against any team with a pulse. You look at the schedule; they barely avoided losing to Auburn at home. Probably should have lost to them. For them, they haven't been able to activate Luther Burden. He has not looked like this Bolitnikoff level receiver that we expected. Um, Brady Cook has looked just milk toast at best, and defensively they are not. They're not improved. They definitely miss their coordinator who went off to LSU. So even though Alabama has problems, Missouri, in my opinion, has problems. So for me, if I had to pick a biggest thing for each, um, Alabama is essentially just kind of, I don't know, maybe the ghost of Saban's past is like haunting them, like that kind of just kind of nagging at them that they haven't been able to just take over games like they have in the past. Mizzou, I mean, just it, Mizzou's biggest issue is maybe how, how do I put it? Uh, I think we all thought that they'd be better, and they just never were. They were never supposed to be here in the first place. So maybe I would say, in a way, both teams' biggest issue is high expectations for lack of substance. Uh, so I don't know. I feel like that was a decent takedown of both situations.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Um, Alabama just looks lost at times defensively. There's not they're not looking as buttoned up as we've seen Alabama teams, and the productivity on the Tigers side is not there. I think you're right about that. Um, Reports are that their leading rusher Nate Noel will be out. He's got a foot injury, so that obviously doesn't help um, their case at all. Um, and yeah, I mean, if you just kind of like go back and look at the numbers, um, Alabama towards the bottom of the SEC in terms of the total yards they allow per game, um, and the points they allow per game, as well as the rushing yards they allow per game. So they're getting ran on. Teams are able to score on them, um, and it's just not working in a lot of ways. And now you're in this position where both teams, could be out of the CFP race entirely. One will definitely be out of the race as a result of this game, or could be out of the race as a result of this game. Missouri technically would go down to two losses, which you know we just talked about it in the SEC could get you a spot. Um, Assuming that they went out, it's kind of hard to believe that Alabama won't be in the playoff at all. But at this point, like it doesn't seem too far fetched.
Not at all. I think
Um,
this is for
yeah,
all intents and purposes a playoff elimination game. Because Missouri, even if they lose, yeah, they'll lose. They'll have two losses, but where are the quality wins left? Um, in preseason, you could say there are probably three good opponents on Missouri's schedule, and one of them has fallen off the face of the planet in Oklahoma. So, guess you could count Vandy if they get hot, but at that point, I just don't see it. So, I think whoever loses this ball game is essentially eliminated from playoff contention.
yeah, 100%. Um, I got Mizzou covering. I got Mizzou covering. Alabama, despite everything that we've sort of broken down here, I don't think Alabama is 13 and a half, or if you even want to buy the half point, 14 points better than any team in the SEC. Um, Maybe that's taking it too far, but I really don't think they're 14 points better than like any of the good teams. And we can maybe debate how good Mizzou is. That's fine, but I do think they're good enough to cover 14 in Tuscaloosa. Just looking at Alabama's games this year, 41 to 34 over Georgia, close game. Mizzou's not Georgia, but Georgia's pretty good. We know they lost at Vanderbilt. South Carolina came in there and almost won the game. Alabama ended up winning by 2 points. And then, of course, they lost at Tennessee 24-17. So I think based on SEC play so far, and to me, Missouri, you could say is on par or better than South Carolina and Vanderbilt. I think maybe those three teams are close. Maybe Missouri is a little bit better. Depends on who you ask. I can't see a situation where Alabama wins that game by, I'm sorry, Alabama wins the game against Missouri by 14 when they've struggled to really separate themselves in these other games, even in wins. So that's my reasoning for Missouri covering. I almost I put it as my lock of the weekend versus Bobby, and I changed it because I got scared. But but I feel really confident. I had the whole argument ready for my lock of the week, but I do feel really confident that Missouri covers.
Hey, fair enough. And I think it's whenever a team gets blown out like Missouri did against Texas A&M, it's hard to know if it was just a bad day or if that's who they are. I tend to be of the belief that I think Missouri is not a very great football team, and I think Alabama, for all of their issues, is going to come out and just exploit who Missouri is. Um, it's at home, 3 weeks of frustration. They're feeling it. Um, and this is a time to kind of put up and, you know, really, make a statement against a team, stop the bleeding, and get some confidence back in that locker room. So I like Alabama to cover here. I just, I don't see it out of Missouri this year. I don't. It This team just hasn't had that kind of magic that they did last year, and Burden has just disappeared. So I could be wrong, but Alabama, for all of their defensive issues here and there, they're still legit. This is the toughest team Missouri's played all year. I think I think the Tide roll by 2 touchdowns or more.
All right. Well, there you have it. Um, Again, Missouri at Alabama in the 3:30 window. Um, Alabama favored by 13 and a half. Um, Total is 53 and a half. That game on ABC. Uh, Looking forward to that matchup. All right, last but not least, in our four biggest games of the weekend, we're breaking down another SEC game. This one, another two ranked opponents. It's LSU, number eight, facing off in College Station against Texas A&M. A&M favored by 2.5. Over under is 53 and a half. Let's start by talking about what's at stake for both of these teams.
Yeah, I mean, this feels like, the SEC race, you know, the SEC title race is so tight right now that both of these teams I feel like are weirdly enough do have the edge on the rest of the conference, mainly because they don't have a conference loss yet. They're both they kind of got the losing out of the way week one, and I feel like whoever loses this one loses an edge. Um, LSU's schedule is a little well. I don't know. LSU and A&M both have pretty kind of difficult schedules because LSU has to play Alabama here, turn around next week. You got them at Death Valley though, which is a plus, and then A&M has that massive Texas game at the end of the year. But I, too much can happen in the SEC for me to say this is what will decide an SEC title spot. But it definitely feels like a game that at the end of the year we're going to point to as what might have decided it if both teams handle business, don't fall off a cliff, all that sort of stuff. So I mean, it's absolutely massive. When you got the Georgias, Alabamas, and Tennessees nipping at your heels, and you might have an Ole Miss pop up. Like you need to get this one to have an edge on everyone else. So um, it's big time, big time.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big game. I think this is two teams and two coaches in two different places, but both teams sort of have really high expectations. So, I mean, we know what the expectations are at LSU and at A&M. The difference just is A&M is sort of in this like a rebuild, retool mode with Mike Elko, and with LSU, we're talking about Brian Kelly, who's been there for a couple of years, and so now boosters and fans and everyone kind of like want to see results, um, from this team. So that's kind of the way that I'm looking at it from where both sides are. I think LSU has had a nice year. I think people sort of forgot about them when they lost to USC early in the season, but they've sort of turned things around a bit, um, and yeah, I think it's cool for them. Um, but I agree with you that like it's really for both the teams like a chance to get in the playoff is in reach, a chance maybe to shake things up and get in the playoff is in reach. Both of these teams are looking at a 9-1, sorry, a 9-3 projection by ESPN with 2.7 win out percentage from LSU, 1.8 from the Aggies, and uh, the the Tigers have a 12% chance of I'm sorry, a 39% chance of making the playoff, and the and A&M has 32%. So there's definitely still some hope there for both of these teams, which is why both of these teams need to win badly. But obviously, we know only one will. Um, my segue from that is that I like A&M. I like A&M in this game. I think just because of their their physicality, I really think that A&M. I just feel like they're going to be able to, um, put a lot of pressure on Garrett Nussmeyer. Um, that stadium's going to be rocking. They've played. We talk about dominance, like they've had a lot of dominant wins in their schedule, and I don't think that they necessarily dominate LSU, but I think having wins like that build your confidence for these tougher games, and so um, I know LSU hasn't lost since USC, but they really haven't looked the same um, as they really haven't looked the same as I think the way A&M has, and so I like the Aggies to win.
Yeah, I think this is like the definition of a coin flip to me because I think you could make an argument for either LSU or A&M in this position. And to me, when you have a coin flip, you typically go with the home team. But Missouri fans, Missouri folks, I wasn't done with y'all yet. I got one more in me. I feel like A&M's triumph against Missouri said more about Missouri than Texas A&M. I like LSU. They find these kind of ways to scrap a little bit. I'm going to take the 2 points on the road. It's going to be a great environment. Kyle Field will be rocking. I'm pretty sure they're going to break out all black uniforms, something Texas A&M never has done. So that will be pretty cool as well. So I'm going to go LSU on the road plus 2.5. Could be very wrong on this one. This is a good friend of mine put it, I think, perfectly. This is one you don't bet on and you just watch the ball game and just enjoy it. So I definitely advise it as a stay away, but it should be fun.
All right, yeah, I agree with you. It should be fun. Those are our predictions, folks. I got A&M. Bobby's got LSU plus 2.5. That game is again at Kyle Field, 7:30 Eastern. A&M favored by 2.5. That's on ABC. Um, can't wait for that game. All right, we're on to rapid fire picks. This show's moving quickly, Bobby. We're at rapid fire picks. Got again a lot of good games. Any of these games could have easily been one of the games on our docket that we talked about. Um, let's start with Syracuse at Pittsburgh. Very, very underrated ACC matchup. When I saw that Florida State and Miami was on the schedule this year, I did not think in week 9, we'd be talking about Syracuse at Pittsburgh as a big ACC matchup. And actually, we have another one we're going to talk about in a second here. But Syracuse 5-1, they look really good this year. Um, they're doing their thing up in upstate New York. Pittsburgh, they are 6-0 and ranked number 19 in the AP poll. Um, who you got?
Yeah, this one on a nice little Thursday night. I feel like we don't have a lot of great
Mhm.
Thursday night college football anymore, so I love to see it. Feels like a nice throwback to 2007, giving me the good vibes. Um, you know, when it's a night game, I like the home team, and I like Pitt at home usually. So I'm gonna go with Pitt. I don't know, loving the vibes here, feeling like a nice Big East game. Maybe if this was college basketball, this would just be a delightful like Big East tournament. Late night. Last game of the night situation. But football wise, I think it'll be pretty delightful too. So give me Pitt to give me Pitt.
Yeah, I was gonna say it kind of feels like a Big East but football matchup. But yeah, Pitt's home field advantage is great. Playing in the football stadium, pretty cool. And it's so funny because like Miami also plays in a football stadium, but the vibes are completely different. Like Pittsburgh's in environment is just so much better. But yeah, Pittsburgh can score. They play really good defense. They're good at creating turnovers. I really like what Syracuse is doing. I think for in football they've had some struggles with kind of finding their footing in the ACC. I believe both teams are coming off a bye, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that's good how they both had time to prepare before this Thursday night game. I think that was a good scheduling break for them. But yeah, I like Pitt to win for sure. All right, moving on. Boise State at UNLV. Boise State keeping their group of five hopes alive for the CFP. Heisman contender Ashton Genty is running and running hard. His numbers look awesome. They got to play the surprise, one of the surprises of the season in UNLV, who still is, I believe, only 5 or 6-1. Um, this game will be late night at Allegiant Stadium on CBS Sports. Should be a really fun watch if you're into the late night college football on a Friday, mind you. I like Boise State. I like Ashton Genty under the lights. He's gonna show out, make his Heisman case. He's gonna have people going to the casino after the game, and and he. I mean, I haven't looked at the odds as of late. Maybe at the top of the next show we'll talk about Heisman odds. But yeah, I like uh, the Boise State Broncos to keep it going here.
It should be him. It should be him. I believe I called him the People's Heisman somewhere earlier in the season on something we did, and I think he's just a Heisman at this point. He is unbelievable. Um, this UNLV team will give him a scare. I think it will. This will be a really good game. I think if you ask me, this is probably Boise's toughest challenge the rest of the way. So this could be a very big defining group of five moment for whoever gets that last college football playoff spot. I like Ashton Genty to get it done. He's just a freaking dynamo, man. He is so fun to watch. UNLV is a good team. Love the go-go offense. Now that is so fun to watch with the two running backs. Definitely worth your time. You absolutely should watch this one. But I'm going with Genty and Boise to pull it out on the road.
All right, I love it. Next game we're gonna break down real quick. Texas at Vanderbilt. I think simple pick here. I like Texas to win. Could definitely going to be that upset alert game that you sort of like have maybe on like another screen, or you're checking your ESPN or whatever app you check your scores on. But yeah, I think Texas after last week kind of getting shell shocked by Georgia. Now the stakes are a little bit higher for them because they know if they lose another game, they're going to be in a little bit of trouble CFP wise. So Vanderbilt's a good team, but this is one they have to have. I think the Longhorns get it done in Nashville.
I want to pick Vandy so bad. I love Diego Pavia. I love everything they've been doing. It just, I just feel like Texas will see this coming. You know, Vandy's already had the upset. Texas was fresh off of a loss. I'm gonna go with the Longhorns, but I think Vandy does keep this thing close. I think this is one you monitor. This is one you monitor the situation. If it's a little bit close, Vandy's ahead. That's when you slam the Vandy money line. But it's definitely one to keep those alerts on, keep the notifications on for this one if you're not watching it, because a nice little Vandy slam might be on the menu here. And look, Texas, they threw a bunch of trash on the field, last week. I don't know. For Vandy, they might get on the field, grab those goalposts, throw them back in the Cumberland once again. So hopefully we get to see that. But Vandy is not the play. So UT.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to like be that shocking upset team twice in a season, especially against really good teams because okay, now we're aware like these guys are frisky, um yeah, it's tough.
Well, and hell,
Um yeah,
they
go ahead.
upset Virginia Tech to start the season. So this would be like their third
Yeah.
time catching a team unaware.
Yeah, yeah. All right, we got another spicy ACC matchup. SMU ranked number 22 at Duke. Both teams with only one loss so far this year. Let me check that. I think that's true. Yeah, both teams 6-1. But SMU favored by 12 in Durham. Um, Shout out Mario Cristobal for getting things off to a hot start over there. Man, we talked about the CFP last week and SMU sort of like being a spicy team in the ACC race here. Uh, Kind of shocked at like what Duke's been able to do this year. They have beat up on a lot of bad teams. I think this is their first like real test, and I think SMU is equipped to handle it. Kind of knowing that they have a chance here. They got an impressive win a couple weeks ago over Louisville. Went to Stanford and absolutely obliterated them. Like I think because they've already been battle tested by Louisville and then BYU before that, I like SMU a little bit better than Duke. I just don't think Duke has seen a test like this yet.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like the ponies on the road. Got a big. We talked about Pitt earlier. Got a big tilt coming up soon with SMU Pitt. Could decide some ACC championship implications and therefore playoff implications. So Mustangs, I think, will continue to roll here. The move to Kevin Jennings has been a game changer for them. So the ponies are the pick.
All right, last one we're gonna do rapid fire here. One of the biggest game, or I'm sorry, the biggest game this weekend, I think in the Big 12, you could argue, is Colorado, who hosts Cincinnati. Um, the the Buffaloes have shocked the world, surpassed their over under, or I think maybe this game, if they won it, they would surpass their over under in Vegas because I can't remember if it was 4.5 or 5.5. But anyway, Buffaloes are 5-2, Bearcats are 5-2. Um, Colorado's defense playing a lot better. Shador Sanders is getting more time to throw. Things are looking pretty good down in Boulder, and a night game in Boulder. It's going to be a really fun one. That stadium's going to be rocking. Um, I think this is a really interesting point in Colorado's tenure because now it's like the hype train is sort of not there right now. It's just more about they're finally putting results um, on the field each week, which is nice. Um, and I like Colorado to win here. I think um, the way they played K State, I was impressed by. Um, Again, they're playing a lot better defensively. Um, they look a lot better. They're not kind of doing some of the silly things they were doing earlier this season. Cincinnati has been in some dogfights as well this year. So I think it'll be a close game, but I like Colorado to pull it out with
Yeah,
a little luck, maybe.
got to give so much credit to Colorado, Coach Prime. Everything they've did this year. This is a team worth the hype we saw last year. It's almost unfair that they have not gotten the same amount of hype because I think they deserve it. Um, the Big 12 has been a very confusing, weird conference this year. You really never know what you're going to get. Since he's been, I mean, they were expected to be awful, and they've been pretty good. I like Colorado to defend Folsom Field, get a win here. But I mean, I would not be stunned if Cincy won this because they just every time I'm counting Cincy out, they find a way to win. But I also
Yeah,
that's the same way with Colorado too. So
yeah,
I don't know. This will be fun. It'll be a fun, feisty game. But I'm gonna go with the Buffs at home.
yeah. Two very similar, like tough teams for sure. All right. Lock of the week. Last week, Bobby and I finally both got wins again. Came out on top. Bobby with the Bobby's hatred for the Longhorns paid off. He had UGA +5, and boy, did that hit. Um, I had Indiana kind of taking the safe route, but it was one of the games we did talk about, so I was able to get 2 points from that. So Bobby still has a comfortable lead with 10 points. I've got four. This week, I'm taking Illinois +21. Again, I like Illinois to come in to Autzen and be feisty. I think Oregon at number one obviously needs to win and will win, but I think it's a combination of two things. One, Oregon not really having anything to prove anymore in terms of like winning big, and I think Illinois just being good enough to keep it within three scores. So I'm taking Illinois +21 as my lock of the week.
I really, really like that. I'm gonna go with Alabama minus 13 and a half. Like you said last week, I powered through, got the win. Partially because of Hayden, partially because I figured that Texas would be proven to be a little bit fraudulent, especially as a number one like type of team. I'm going back to the well with the Hayden. I'm not a big Missouri guy. We got beef. In my opinion, I don't like OU and Mizzou. Like it's not really a rivalry. It's just kind of it's like a situation ship with the disdain. And I think they're about to get exposed by the Crimson Tide on the road. Um, I think Alabama gets things back. If you missed any of my hating from earlier, just rewind the tape. It's about half the episode. Crimson Tide by 13 and a half is the play.
All right. Well, we're gonna see if those hit right here next week on Multiplicity Media. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Like, subscribe, and share with your friends. We would love for this show and channel, of course, to grow. But we'll see you back here next week to preview next week's biggest games. Until then, I'm Max. That's Bobby. Check us out next week. Peace.